It's a real honor to come year after year to this group. And some of you I know have been in some of my sessions before. And so thank you for coming back and hearing me again. This young man and his wife, the Frasers there, they have been in a number of my sessions over the years. And so they keep coming back. I ain't got no money to give you this year, though. Okay. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But it's so always good to see them here and always good to see all of you who come. Thank you, Ms. Price, for emceeing this session today. So today we're going to talk about leading in crisis. Woo! So just a little bit about my background. I'm a global speaker. I've spoken to audiences on 4 continents of the world: Europe, Asia, Africa, throughout North America, other continents, Central America, South America, either in person or online, Middle East, and I love what I do. However, prior to some of that anyway, I was in corporate America. I worked for large global organizations, a couple that are headquartered right here in Illinois, Abbott Laboratories, AbbVie. So I've been in the healthcare, pharmaceutical industry, as well as electronic data systems previous to being absorbed by Hewlett-Packard. So I was in the IT services industry. I've also been in the nonprofit sector as an executive. So putting all that together along with my John Maxwell experience, this is kind of who I am and how I'm able to present. My clients are in government, non-government, private sector, public sector, et cetera. So that's just a little bit about me. So let me start today's session, and tomorrow actually I'm going to include this slide in my presentation tomorrow because I love it as a level-setting moment, right? When we talk about leadership, we really need to understand what we're talking about when we talk about leadership, all right? And so the first thing that I want to do is just kind of share with you 5 key principles around leadership. Number 1, what is leadership? Leadership is influence. So what's important about this definition is not only its simplicity, but it is also what it is not, right? Leadership is not title, rank, and position, which is often what leadership is assumed to be, right? It's my title. Sometimes you get introduced to a person and say, "What's your name?" And they lead with their title. It's always an interesting kind of notion, right? It's like, okay, did your parents name you? Did they give you that? Okay, yeah, okay, no, okay. But people conflate their importance and their identity with their title. But title has nothing to do with leadership. The two are totally different, right? You can have a title and still not be a leader, right? You can have rank and still not be a leader. You can have position and still not be a leader. So what is leadership then? Leadership is, read it, influence. Come on, let's try it one more time. Leadership is influence. All right, second principle, really key here. For each one of you, whether you're in government or whether you're in the private sector, you own your own business, entrepreneur, solopreneur, whatever it is, the second bullet is absolutely key. Help me read that one out loud. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Come on, let's say it one more time. Everything rises and falls on leadership. How many things? Everything. How many things? Everything. So your business, your government agency, your home, your nonprofit agency, your Boys and Girls Club, whatever it is that you're part of, it rises and falls on the basis of leadership. So you chose the exact right session to be in, notwithstanding all of the other incredible sessions that are going to equip you well with technical info, because everything rises and falls not on the basis of technical acumen, but everything rises and falls on the basis of leadership. right? Number 3, the highest form of leadership is self-leadership. When I talk to young people, sometimes I'll talk, I teach some young people that are sometimes have had difficulty in life and they're has some problems, and I'm talking to them about youth leadership, and I'll ask the question, who's the hardest person for you to lead? No. That's not what they start off with, okay? No, who's the hardest person for you to lead? And what's interesting is that they'll often talk about us. Yeah, who said it? Their parents, right? The parents. Like, okay, well, who told you you're supposed to be trying to lead me anyway, right? But they'll say the parents are the most difficult ones to lead. And who else? Come on, think back to when you were a kid.
I would say yourself.
No, not the teachers.
Friends.
Come on, not the friends.
Self.
No, not the self. Who do the young people say? Their brothers or their sisters, right? Their siblings, right? Now, don't you remember that? And when I say, why is your brother or your sister so hard to lead? And guess what they say? Who said it? You had a situation like that. That's how you knew it, because you answered that too fast. You didn't have time to Google it to get the right answer, right? So, yeah, still trying. Some of you are still trying to lead your brothers and sisters, right? And they just won't. If they would just, yeah, right. But after I get finished talking with them about leadership and working with them, and I ask that question, then they get it. To your point, sir, yeah, I'm the hardest one to lead. Number 4, the greatest purpose of leadership, read, is to what? When you catch that principle right there, that if you are successful in title, rank, and position, or if you understand the power of just influence and understand that it's about adding value to others, your life will begin to change, and those people that you influence will also change, right? And then number 5, the heart of leadership is service. I was having a conversation with someone, and I was kind of asking him, so what do you do? Why do you do what you do? And if you think about this last principle here, imagine if in your mind you could distill it all down to, I'm about serving others. I'm about adding value to others. Yeah, I've got to make money and all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's about serving. It's about adding value to others. I want to tell you, when I say everything rises and falls on the basis of leadership, it's these last 2 pieces here that are crucial to your success. Understanding it's about adding value to others. Understanding it's about serving others. I teach a whole series on servant leadership. I'm sorry, sir?
Sometimes I feel like the last one is the most appreciated one.
Sure. Yeah, right. But leaders don't lead from the perspective of having to have that validation. Leaders lead from the front generally, right? And they lead from this perspective, right? I'm about serving. I'm about adding value, right? Here's what will happen over time. When this becomes who you are, guess what? You're going to attract the kind of people that are going to really mutually add value to you. That's a whole different story, conversation. I'm happy to have that conversation with you one-on-one some other time. All right. Are we good so far? Just wanted to lay the ideological foundation for what we're talking about relative to leadership. All right. So, this session is talking about, what's the C word? Crisis. Let's just look at it. I've got a couple slides on crisis here. So, what's the definition of crisis? A time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. What are some of the characteristics of a problem, of a crisis? It is often sudden. It leaves you in a state of uncertainty and flux and not having your sea legs. And often the impact of it is there are high stakes with which you and I have to deal. All right? A time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. Here's another perspective about crises. A crucial or decisive point or situation, especially a difficult or unstable situation involving an impending change. Does that sound remotely connected to where anybody might be today? All right? Now, what are some of the common characteristics of a crisis? Unpredictability again, severe impact, and the necessity. Oh, that's so good right there. You ought to take a picture of this slide here. All right? The necessity for what? Adjustment. Now, it is the necessity for adjustment piece that sometimes challenges us, doesn't it? How many have ever been faced with the necessity for an adjustment and it was like, whoa, I know I need to, but I don't want to. It's worked all this time, up to this time. I really don't want to work. Or it hasn't worked, but I still don't want to change, right? So you're in a crisis. All right, so how many of you have had a crisis this year already? Let me see your hands. Based on that, okay, all right, keep those hands up. All right. You've had a crisis already this year. All right. Put your hands down. How many have had a crisis within the last 15 months? Okay. Okay. Let me ask you one more time. How many have had a crisis within the last 2 years? How many are still trying to understand what is a crisis? Okay. All right, so most of you then have had a crisis. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to pair up with somebody in the room, someone that you don't necessarily know so well. And what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to just connect with them. Now, you don't know them that well. They don't know you, so you could tell them that you had a crisis because you lost $1 million last week, and they don't know you anyway, right? So I'd like for you to just connect with somebody. We're going to give you about 5 minutes or so. I want you to talk about a crisis that you've had. Now, it could be any kind of crisis, right? Because once again, we're not just, this monolithic business leader, government leader, right? We're people, and as people, we have crises, don't we? Yeah, I remember a few years ago, my son, 26 years old, came down with cancer. You think that was a crisis for me? Oh, it was a challenge. It was a serious challenge, right? And I'm working and I'm traveling and trying to juggle it all and coming back into town, taking them to Northwestern and da-da-da-da-da. 26-year-old kid's not supposed to get cancer, right? Rare form of cancer. And they didn't know exactly what to do. They kept cutting and cutting and cutting. 8 operations on his head. And I'm still trying to work and deal with everything that's going on. That was a time of increase and significant challenge and difficulty. Yes, it was a crisis, right? So today, what I'm going to do after we get finished here is we're going to give you 3 principles for dealing with crisis. So in the meantime, I want you to go find somebody, share with them a crisis, and share with them a learning from that crisis. So not just a crisis, but a learning from that crisis. All right, go grab somebody before someone else gets them. Let's go ahead and come back together. So, how many of you got to the point in the discussion about lessons learned from the crisis? Anybody? All right. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. So let me just hear, perhaps, if you don't mind, maybe a couple of the scenarios that were discussed. in terms of a crisis, to the extent that you need to sanitize it or whatever, feel free. Yes, sir.
I'm a coordinator at a community college for a construction and training program, and a couple of students got into a confrontation, not physical, but it was approaching that. And it was actually between a man and a woman. And I intervened and explained that I was taking her away from the situation, and that seemed to work. That's it.
Yeah, it was a crisis. So what was the lesson learned from that, if you got to that?
The lesson was to make sure at the beginning of the semester that we are,
Addressing those kinds of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
if there's any confrontation or
Yeah.
conflict between students, to make sure that they come to me right away.
Wow, good stuff. Thank you very much. Give them a hand on that. Excellent. Thank you. Someone else. A crisis situation. And by the way, thank you, Ms. Price, for reminding me with the question. Yes, my son is now okay. So, yeah, he came through that, and so really thankful. But in that moment, in that season, it was definitely a crisis, definitely. Learned a whole lot during that time. Good God. How many of y'all, without raising your hand, have also had some business challenges or employment challenges that rise to the level of some of these definition and characteristics? Yeah? How many have had personal issues that rose to that level, right? And notice this one, severe impact. Potential severe impact, right? And requiring you to do what? Make adjustments. Oh my, it's good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to move on. I'm sure that there are others out here, other crisis scenarios. So take a look at where we are right now in our world today. Whew! Wow. What's going on in our world? How many times now have we seen the first three words like over and over and over again? This is entirely unprecedented, right? How many times? We've probably heard the word unprecedented, unbelievable, and chaotic like more in the last let me just leave that alone. We've heard these words. How many have heard these words a whole lot? Right? But what we don't hear as much are the last two words. Opportunity. Yeah, opportunity. So, leaders, this is why it's so important that you're here today. Why? Because it is as you think you behave. And it is as you behave that you create certain results. That was so good. I got to say it one more time for the person sitting next to you who wasn't writing it down. Listen, leaders, the way we think informs how we behave. It informs how we lead, right? And then how we lead over time determines the results that we produce. So in chaotic, unbelievable, unprecedented times, leaders have to lead, have to become, have to grow into a different person than where we were prior to the crisis. Watch this now. Here's the last question, or the question on this slide that is crucial. I want you to write that question down. In the last crisis that I had, how did I grow? How did I grow? If you're in a crisis right now, I won't be presumptuous to think that some of you right now may be experiencing crisis, business crisis, personal crisis, economic crisis, challenges, right? I won't be so presumptuous to think that might not be somebody in this room right now. So I want to pause, because you've elected to come to this session today, to just ask you for a moment if you can zone out of that intensity for a moment and ask yourself the question, how am I growing in this crisis? Now, You see, without this kind of intervention or someone coaching you and challenging you, you can get lost in a crisis. You can get so lost in a crisis where the idea of even coming out of the crisis is like a concept that you can't even imagine. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, you're talking about asking ourselves that question.
Yes, sir.
In the middle of a crisis.
In the midst of a crisis. Yeah. Like right now, if you're in a crisis right now, right? I can't do anything about the crisis right now. You may not be able to do anything about the crisis right now. But if for the next 30 minutes or so, you can jump out of it for a moment to just pause and to write this question down and say, on my way to my hotel room tonight, as I'm in the hotel room putting all my notes together, ask yourself this question: how am I growing in this crisis? So I want to challenge you to think of crises as opportunities for growth. Crises are opportunities to grow. Now, I know that just sounds great, right? That's the great motivation, but no, it's really true. It really is true. Crises are tremendous opportunities for personal growth. In fact, if I think about my life, some of my best moves occurred after a crisis. Wow. Or maybe even during a crisis. See what I'm saying? Some of the best things, like the next, happened as a result of coming through a crisis. Now, so what's crucial for a leader is how we think in the midst of a crisis. So let's go on a little bit further and talk about that. Here are the core principles for leading in crisis. I'm going to give you 3. How many did I say? 4. How many did I say? 4. I'm going to give you 3. Did I say 4? I said 4? No. Who said 4? Y'all heard wrong here. All right. I'm giving you 3. I'm not giving you, we've already given you probably more than 3 already. But we're going to give you just 3 for the rest of the session. 3. How many did I say? 3. All right. Don't say 4. All right. So these 3 principles are absolutely crucial. You can take a shot of this slide if you like. Number 1 is lead by example. Number 2 is leverage adversity. And number 3 is foster team spirit. Now, there are many more, right? But for purposes of our session today, I want to hit these 3. And as leaders in organizations, whether you're in government, in the private sector, whatever, if you'll focus on these 3, it'll help you to be able to add additional principles to ensure your success in the midst of crisis, all right? So number 1 is lead by example. Who's the hardest person to lead? It's not the person sitting next to you, right? It's not the person waiting at home, right? Thank you. Somebody said the quiet part out loud. It's not the kids, right? It's not the employees, right? How many of y'all, come on now, let's be honest, it's just us in here, right? Besides the cameras rolling and all of that, but it's just us in here right now, right? How many of you have heard other people say it's hard to find good employees? How many have heard that? You've never said it, of course, raise your hands, but you've heard it a couple of times, right? Hard to find good people, right? Can't find good people, right? You find one and then they leave, right? Right. The hardest person to lead is you. So core principle number 1 to navigate during a crisis is to lead yourself to lead by example. All right? Write that down. To lead yourself to lead by example. The most important person to lead in the midst of a crisis is not your team. The most important person to lead in the midst of a crisis is yourself. And it starts with framing and reframing, learning and unlearning and relearning how we think. Because in the midst of a crisis, we are bombarded with an incredible onslaught that challenges the way we think. And in the midst of some crises that are so severe, so chaotic, and so messed up, it can stymie you where you can't even feel like you can think properly. So the first person to lead is yourself. Now, so this requires, as a leader, an incredible skill. Requires an incredible skill. This is why everything rises and falls on leadership. Because this is not about, the technical skill to plug, to unplug, to understand what to do with the song. This is about you. This is about learning how to unlearn, relearn how we think, right? Because if I'm messed up in my thinking as a leader, it's going to show in the decisions that I make, and my team is also going to experience the chaos associated with it. John Maxwell has something called the law of the lid. And the law of the lid says this: every one of us has a leadership lid, and my team will always come up against that lid. I cannot lead my team beyond where I am. So if my thinking is not good in times of crisis, I'm going to lead my team accordingly. I can't help it. So if I'm going to lead my team through a crisis situation, or my family or the organization, I've got to up-level my thinking, which means here is the skill that's necessary to lead by example. I have to be able to pull myself out of the moment and begin to think about the people that I lead, those I influence, and what I need to be in order to add value and serve them the best. This is a crucial skill. And I'll be honest with you, in times of crisis, it's sometimes the last thing I want to think about, right? But it's crucial, because if I'm not thinking about the future, if I'm not thinking about being strategic, if I'm not thinking about how I think and how I lead and its impact on those I serve, it's not going to be a good situation. So this is challenging for us, especially based on those definitions of crisis, isn't it? It's not easy stuff. But I've got to remove myself from the moment and move into, how am I leading, and what is the impact of the way I'm leading on those that I'm called to serve? And that will inform you then of how you have to be. And there are times, this is not a long-term strategy. Let me say that again. This is not a long-term strategy, but there are some times when you fake it until you get it. It's not a long-term strategy, because you ultimately, you got to become someone different. But when you know that you're not thinking properly in a way that's going to inspire leadership among those that are following you, you've got to understand, who do I need to look like, and who do I need to become in order to best serve those that I'm called to serve? So lead by example, number one. The next one is leverage adversity. Okay, how many of you all right now kind of heard what was being said at lunchtime and has heard what has been said over the media over and over again about the times in which we live right now, right? Are we living in some pretty challenging times right now? We're living in some challenging times, aren't we? Yeah. A lot of people are talking about the prices of eggs, right? I don't know exactly what the price of eggs is, but a lot of people. I saw a little ditty the other day, and it was a couple sitting in their house counting the money. They had some eggs there, and they were counting the money because people would call in. You got a couple eggs? Yeah, how much is that? $10. Okay, come on. And then they were just counting the money, just 10. Can I get like 2 egg whites? Just going at it. It was so, it was funny. I guess it reminded me maybe of, a drug dealer or whatever that, just what, but apparently, this is a major issue. People are hurting. People are being challenged. And in this time of adversity, how many of us are pausing to say, I'm turning off the media, I'm turning off whatever the poison is, and I'm going to figure out how I leverage this moment. Because with every adversity, there is a corresponding greater opportunity. Y'all missed that. You missed that. You missed that. I want you to look at the person next to you and tell them that. Say, with every adversity, there is a corresponding greater opportunity. There's a greater opportunity with every adversity. So the time in which we're living in right now, Mr. Frazier, the difficulty, the adversity, all of the stuff, can I tell you this? This is why it's important for leaders. We have to think different. We have to think higher, right? There's a corresponding greater opportunity than we've even imagined. So here's the question. How many of you right now, with that level of, with that type of thinking, can now look at your adversity or some of the broader external environmental adversities that are at play right now and say, and ask yourself, where is the opportunity in the midst of this? Because that guy said there's a corresponding greater opportunity. How many of you are willing to just take that journey in a moment of adversity? Yeah, there's opportunity. There's opportunity. There's opportunity. In the midst, no matter how many, let me be careful here. How much adversity comes your way, no matter how many things are affected in the state programs, the federal programs, I want to tell you as leaders, it's a principle. There's more opportunity available than what you've even imagined. But if you just drink the Kool-Aid of the adversity, you'll never leverage the adversity to get to the greater. Does that make sense? Oh, well, that was so good. That was so good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. The last one is with your team, with your organization, it's about fostering team spirit, right? And this means then that I have to keep my team connected to the vision. I've got to keep them connected to the values and the vision. Got to keep them connected to the values and the vision in the midst of adversity. And if I keep them connected to the values and the vision, it's an easy thing to tell. It's an easier thing to say, the vision and the values are even greater than the moment. So we're going to make it through this. What do you need? How can I serve you to ensure that we get to the vision? Sometimes leaders in these moments of crisis withdraw and go into our own holes, and we don't want to be bothered with nobody. Can I say it like that? I know that's improper English. I said it on purpose. We don't want to be bothered with anybody. It's like, I just need some time to just go into my hole and hibernate for the next 3 months till this crisis is over. But because we're leading by example, we understand that our teams are experiencing crises, right? And so we have to stay connected to the value and the vision. And we got to keep that out in front of the people and then flip the pyramid to how can I serve you for us to reach the vision. One of the things about adversity and crisis is that everybody has them. Sooner or later, everybody has them. Let me just pause for a moment and see if anything that I've said so far resonates, or if you have a question or a comment, or if there's anything that's percolating in you that says, yeah, that worked. I need to do that. Can I tell you that there are some things that in the bigger scheme of life need to be broken? We don't want them to get broken. The make or break. Some things, in order for you to get to your next, need to be broken in order for you to get to your next. Can I tell you that? This is not just, a Les Brown motivational hype thing. No. Ain't that. This is real life. I've had my career broken a couple of times. Woo. But every time it broke, it set me up for more, for greater. Is anybody else can identify with that? Some things need to be broken, and I don't want to be broken. All right, I want things to just, that ain't life. Life is much more like a heartbeat, right? And when things have broken, because of how you look at it, will determine whether you're going to come out on the other side. Remember those 3 principles. Number 1, lead yourself so you can lead by example. Number 2, ask the question, how am I growing in this? Ask the question, how can I leverage this adversity? Because John Maxwell says this, to every problem, there is always a solution, and usually more than one. I love that. To every problem, to every crisis, there is always a solution, and usually more than one. But if I'm caught up in the wind of the crises and the challenge, I'll never be able to get out of it, at least for a moment, to start considering where the opportunity might be. And then number 3, keep those around you engaged in the values and the vision. What do leaders do in times of crisis? At the end of the day, they take the lemons and do what? Yeah, you got to add some sugar to it too, though, right? You got to add some sugar to it and stir it up. But at the end of the day, that's what we do. We take a sour situation, right, and we make it palatable and delectable. All right, I want to close with this major final slide, and that is this. 3 questions, right? Go ahead and write these down or take a snapshot of them if you'd like. Number 1, in the crisis, I've got to ask myself this question every day. How am I going to get better through this crisis? How can I use this crisis to add value to somebody else? And what action will I take that will improve my situation? What action can I take right now, that can improve the situation? 3 questions to ask yourself daily in any kind of moment of crisis. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a tremendous honor to serve you. Oh, okay. Please, I'm sorry. Yes, to serve you today and to just give you a small piece, right? We're in times of crisis. Guess what? They're probably not going to change anytime soon. In fact, I got a feeling they could even expand. Crises have a tendency to expand, right? But if we're as leaders kind of moving with this additional level of thinking, we can not only weather this, here's a thought. We can thrive in the midst of crisis. Oh, I just want to drop that on somebody. In this current place of, I'm not going to try to survive. I'm planning to thrive. But it all depends on how I think. It's been an honor to serve you. Thank you so much.